sheriff runs the jail in Monroe County, and 41% of the sheriff's office budget is related to the corrections division. Please outline what you have done or would do to improve this important operation.
Just real fast, just want to say in regards to training, we do follow-up training. In fact, after that, we purchased a driving simulator, state-of-the-art driving simulator. Same one used at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. It's the top driving simulator that we now make our officers use that simulator every year to combat driving. And since that policy came in place, prior to that, we're averaging 4 cars a year totaled out. Since then, last 2 years, not 1 car, so the policy is working. Question about the Bureau of Corrections. This is a big part of our agency. 41% of your budget is Bureau of Corrections. A lot of liability, a lot of responsibility. I'm very fortunate to have been the operations captain of that jail and ran that jail. I worked in the main jail in Key West as the chief security officer. I know that jail in and out and all aspects of the jail, which is critical. One thing that I particularly take pride in that I put in place there, which has been very effective, is when it came down to the main jail, I noticed we had a large amount of use of force, notice of injuries, workman comp claims, and liability. This was a result of men and women in the jail having to go hands-on with inmates. Back then, the only thing you had was a radio in your hands. There was no intermediate weapons like a patrol deputy has. Now you see a baton, a taser, chemical agents to deal with combative situations. I found when I was in there that it was coming down to who was the baddest person on the block. With that, sometimes their officers came out okay, sometimes they got injured. Broken fingers, broken arm, twisted this, twisted that, pulled that. I implemented in that jail chemical agents on all officers, which is pepper spray, something we never had. I put pepper spray in that jail when I took over that jail, and our use of force reports dropped dramatically. Our injuries to officers dropped dramatically. Our workman comp claims dropped dramatically. Potential inmates injuries dropped dramatically. Liability exposure to the sheriff's office of the county dropped dramatically. So that was one thing I boast as a positive step that I did while the operations captain at jail, which has been very effective for the men and women of the sheriff's office, the community, and also the inmates that we house in the facilities. Thank you.
Well, other than the morale problems and what I've already said I would do for the other officers, I would do the same thing for the jail. But I don't know of many issues other than the morale problem in the jail. But what I would look at is recently there's been some deaths in the jail, and I would review those cases and I would review the policies and procedures to see if the policies that we have are good or if we need to improve those to prevent any future deaths. And that's where I would focus my attention when I first get elected. Thank you.
Just wanted to clarify a couple things as I answer this question. Colonel Ramsey said that all these policies that he put in place, kind of like Tom said, but brags about that he's been basically second command and the highest level of making decisions in this agencies for 8 years. What took so long for these decisions to come in place? Okay, it's called basically micromanagement, and when mistakes are made and you have to look for somebody to blame, then and only then do we make changes to the current policies. Same policies hold true for in the jail. Okay, I've worked in the jail on the floor in the old jail and in the new jail, not in an office. Okay, not walking around with a bar on my sleeve. Okay, I've actually done the job in the jail, and what he said about bringing in the pepper spray, it's probably something that those officers begged for and pleaded for years and just didn't have somebody there to listen to them. And thankfully, they found somebody that would actually listen to them and get them the tools they needed for the trade. But I would disagree where Colonel Ramsey says that he takes credit for those changes in the jail and actually running the jail. The truth be told, folks, the inmates run our jail. Okay? They really do. Okay? And I challenge you, you can go as a public member of the public and get an escort through that facility, and you'll see that firsthand. Okay? In addition to that, though, the men and women that work in that jail, they do their best to run that jail. And they put their lives at risk and their livelihoods and their health because of all the contaminants and environmental factors that they deal with in working in that facility. It's real easy to make policy when you sit in an air-conditioned office and don't have to work in that environment. I can tell you that basically, as Matt said, the big thing is we have some outstanding employees that work in that jail. Some of them are career officers that have been in that 10 to 15 year bracket that know what's going on. The same factors that occur on the FTO level on the road are amplified even more in the jail because their turnover is higher there. You have the blind leading the blind and getting blinder. Okay, when the lights go out, nobody knows how to figure out where they're going and how to get there. Okay, by having experienced officers both in the jail and on the road, you decrease your liability and your service, or decrease your liability and increase your service to the community 100-fold from what we're currently getting. And those solutions and those policy decisions, the best ones that come to fruit are the employees that actually deal with those problems every single day. They have the answers, folks. They're just begging for somebody to actually listen to them and implement those policies. I would sit down individually, meet with every single officer, and take their advice and make sure that their ideas are fully implemented so that they don't have any excuses not to perform to the level that we expect as citizens of this county. Thank you.
All right. Part of the question was, we're 41% of our budget goes to the jail. It's hard to tell. You go online, you pull it down, 41% of the salaries for the jail are showing up at the website. It doesn't account in the computers that are needed to run the facility, the maintenance, utility bills, the water bills, the air conditioning bill, and the healthcare providers that are in there. You're not getting a true breakout of the budget. You're only getting a percentage of what the salaries are in order to do that. One of the issues that I want to address when I become sheriff is to provide you with an itemized budget. So you know what the utility bill was. You know if it's higher this month than it was last month. What are we paying for health care? And speaking of health care, we got some issues. Sometimes you save a couple of bucks, you're going to pay for it in the end. Lawsuits, unfortunately deaths. We need to look at the type of services that are being provided. My hat's off to our corrections officers. When I worked in the Air Force for 7 years, I was in a building very much like they were, except it wasn't prisoners. I had no windows, and to put up with what they put up with all day long, it wasn't me, it was my cousin, my brother, and susceptible to all kinds of diseases. Hats off to the corrections people. Thank you.
The question was about jail. I just wanted to go back to something Rick mentioned earlier. The numbers I talked about with FHP, just to give you a little background, back when I went to the police academy, I paid about $1,200. I'm sure it was much cheaper when Rick went and some of these other guys. I teach at the academy across the street at the high school. I can tell you it's a little more expensive than Miami-Dade County's academy, but it costs $10,000 for a law enforcement officer to go there. So if you break that number down, 10,000 times 15, it's still $1.7 million. If anybody's interested in looking at that study from FHP, I will get it on my website here in the next couple of days so you can take a look at it and look at the actual facts and figures. I know the questions about corrections. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and I'm not challenging Jake's response, but I certainly hope that the inmates are not in control of our jail. If they are, we're in big trouble. I didn't realize I knew the colonel had worked as captain in the jail. I didn't realize Jake had ever worked in the jail before. So I was going to stand up here and say I was the only one who'd ever worked in the jail, an agent. But I stand corrected. I worked for the Florida Department of Corrections for 6 years. During my time with the Florida Department of Corrections, 4 of which I was a supervisor, I worked as the officer in charge of a state prison with more than 1,400 inmates, supervising 150 officers and those 1,400 inmates. I'm proud of the time I spent in corrections. I worked day to day working as an officer for the first 2 years, and then the second 4 years was a sergeant, at times being the officer in charge of the prison. I believe it made me a better law enforcement officer. It taught me how to deal with people. It taught me how to deal with people much more effectively. To improve corrections, we must stop the high turnover rate, which is exactly the same as road patrol. 2011 was actually 16 officers we lost instead of 15. And that's what we need to do. We need to stop this turnover rate. Thank you.